Hello and welcome to India's World. Today we are going to discuss the prospects for India-Pakistan trade, which seem to be subject to the ups and downs in the relationship. Pakistan's Commerce Minister Makhdoom Amin Fahim was supposed to come to India and spend some time interacting with his counterpart, Mr. Anand Sharma, on the sidelines of a summit in Agra on January 27th and 29th. He has suddenly cancelled his trip. Now we want to know whether India-Pakistan trade has any future at all. To discuss this question, I have with me a distinguished panel. I have Admiral K K Nayyar. He is a strategic affairs expert and a keen watcher of Pakistan's economy. He is also head of the Nimrana dialogue from the Indian side, the oldest and the longest continuous dialogue with Pakistan?
22 years.
22 years. And I have from Pakistan Dr. Asad Sayeed. He is an economist who did his PhD from Cambridge, where we first met and became friends 21 years ago. He has since then gone back to his country. He's an eminent economist. He's worked for the Planning Commission, various government panels, and is a preeminent voice in the media and elsewhere on Pakistan's economy. And I have with me Ambassador Shiv Shankar Mukherjee, a veteran diplomat and a former advisor on international affairs to FICCI, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Welcome all of you to this show. Admiral, let me begin with you, and let me ask you a very basic question. Does India-Pakistan trade have any future?
I think certainly, because Pakistan is the third largest country on the Eurasian landmass. It's our neighbor, and sky is the limit for the trade as far as the two countries are concerned. And apart from the economic aspect of it, I think that increasing trade would increase the opportunity of the important people from both the countries to meet more often together and contribute to significant improvement in the bilateral relations.
Ambassador Mukherjee, does trade require an enabling political atmosphere? Or are businessmen expected to invest huge amounts of money irrespective of what happens in the political dialogue or politically contentious issues between two countries?
Well, I think history and our experience shows that an enabling political atmosphere is necessary. But the flip side is that promotion of commerce, in fact, leads to a more of an enabling atmosphere. So one really does affect the other positively. If you look at the history of Europe, and people have forgotten that it's actually a blood-soaked continent. And when after the Second World War, as Europe has moved towards complete European Union today, it began with the underpinning of commerce. It began with the European coal and steel community. So to that extent, I would certainly agree with the Admiral that there is a case for underpinning the relationship with commerce, which would help in other areas as well. Certainly the political climate can act as a brake, as a barrier. You look at the fledgling trade that had started on the line of control, where buses are now marooned because of the recent days of tension.
But to be fair, that's not Indo-Pak trade. That's more a CBM between the two Kashmirs.
Well, trade, I think, is one of the most important CBMs there is. When countries trade with each other and exchange goods and services, it provides the incentive to stay away from hostilities and move towards accommodation. So I would go along with that.
Asad, this relationship seems to be underpinned by our differences rather than by a desire to build trade ties. After all, why do you think your Commerce Minister suddenly cancelled his visit? Was it because of the prevailing atmosphere, or was it because he was unable to deliver on MFN status, most favoured nation status to India by December 31st, as they were supposed to do, and he thought he might get embarrassing questions from the Indian side on that?
I would not know why he cancelled and exactly what the reasons were, Bharat. But I think to the question that you put earlier, trade, I think, is or has to be, if you take a medium to long run, inevitable and a necessity. The fact of today's world is that there are no other two neighboring countries of the size of India and Pakistan that do not trade with each other in a full-fledged, normal, sort of formal manner. And that's not sustainable for either one of them, and in a situation where both are committed to be trading openly and fairly with the rest of the world. So both are members of the WTO. So being a signatory of the WTO means that you are committed to free trade at that level. So it is going to happen. Secondly, I think that there are very significant gains from trade to be made. So it is something which is economically very good for the people of India and Pakistan, and for the common people of India and Pakistan. Economic theory tells us that that smaller countries benefit a lot more than the larger ones. So Pakistan stands to gain based on that. But India, I think, stands to gain for another very peculiar reason, and that is that going into the future, India looks like an energy deficit country.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Let me go to the Admiral. Admiral, let me go back to the earlier question. If India and Pakistan cannot isolate trade from political differences between them, then how is it possible to trade at all?
No, I don't agree that we cannot separate trade and political relations. As was mentioned by the Ambassador, that as a matter of fact, trade will increase the opportunity of people to meet and significantly improve bilateral relations. And there are other economic benefits which will come out of it, because I think as the Indian labor costs are rising, we will be able to shift a lot of production capacity into Pakistan, which will create jobs there and will increase the capacity of Pakistan to buy things from us.
Asad, do most Pakistanis see trade with India as a concession to India or as a necessity? Quickly, because we'd have to wrap up this section.
Well, at the common level, at the business level, they see it as a necessity. There are elements within the government and the foreign policy establishment that see it as a concession.
Okay. We need to take a short break just now. We'll be back soon. Don't go away. We'll continue with this discussion. Welcome back. We are discussing the future of India-Pakistan trade, a future if any. Ambassador Mukherjee, what would India gain from trade with Pakistan, or could we do without trade with Pakistan?
Well, given the size of India, theoretically I'm sure it's possible to conceive of a situation where you stop trading with Pakistan altogether. But that doesn't to me sound like being in the realm of practical policy. There are endowments in Pakistan. I remember a case in point, which is cement, when shortages in India could easily have been tightened over by imports from Pakistan, and some of it actually was done. So these are opportunities that are best left to businessmen, because they are the ones who will see what are the natural endowments. Services, for instance, is one of India's strengths. I can see a huge amount of advantage in opening up the market for services from India to Pakistan. I'm not an expert on the Pakistani economy, but I'm sure Professor Sayeed could enlarge on other areas where a closer interaction would benefit both sides economically. Having said that, yes, the political hostility that sort of mars relations between India and Pakistan, intensifies sometimes, and so on. That leads to a certain level of uncertainty which businessmen don't like, and you can't blame them for that. But as I said, there is the flip side as well. So the intention should be After all, there's already trade going on which is called informal trade. For informal trade, read smuggling.
Or third country trade.
Or third country trade. So
so you're saying let's legitimize it.
Let's legitimize it, and to be fair to the situation here in India, as you referred yourself just now, under WTO, actually Pakistan is obliged to provide the most favored nation treatment, under SAFTA as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't see any downside to it, though I do see difficulties in smoothly implementing it.
Asad, let me ask you a slightly different question. Is the Pakistan Army on board for liberalizing trade with India? And if so, why is it on board?
Well, I am a civilian, I suppose, so what goes
on
in the Pakistan Army, I can't say for certain, but there have been very encouraging developments over the last 2 years. We, as you know, we traded on a positive list with India, which meant that only certain items of trade were allowed and everything else was prohibited. So there has been a move from that to a negative list, which means that everything is allowed except for certain items.
And there are not too many. There are only about 1,209 items there.
No, well, that had to be reduced. It's from what I know, there's more than that. Okay. But the fact that you've moved from a positive list to a negative list is important. The cabinet has endorsed the MFN. It's been discussed in the National Assembly without any opposition to it. The business community in Pakistan is, on the whole, all major fora of business, from big business to your regular chambers of commerce and regional chambers of commerce, have all endorsed and passed resolutions in favor of trade. There are certain groups, industry groups, which are against it, but that's inevitable. That would happen everywhere.
Admiral, what are the politically limiting factors and what are the non-political limiting factors to this trade?
Well, political factors, as you've seen, that occasionally there is one incident or the other and high-pitched voices are raised. But that, I think, is only marginal, because the ingenuity of the entrepreneurs both in India and Pakistan arrange, if not a direct trade through different routes, which increases the cost as far as Pakistan is concerned. But I think non-political reasons are many, and one is the size of Pakistani economy, the problems which it faces currently, and its capacity to export, because with over 30 years of open trade with China, I was quite surprised to hear from Dr. Ishrat Hussain that barely $6 to $7 billion of exports take place from Pakistan to China. Now, if that is the figure as far as possibility of export to India is concerned, it is from an economic point of view not a very important figure indeed. But what is most important is that it will improve the bilateral relations in the long run.
Asad, I've often heard this, that people say India's economy is huge, their economy is of scale, India has certain advantages, and that Pakistani economy would be hurt. Do you buy this? Because with free trade with China, it's true, some inefficient sectors of the industry have been hit. But that hasn't really bothered Pakistanis. So if they could compete with the extremely competitive Chinese products, Indian products are not that competitive. So why these fears?
You know, I'll just quote a major Pakistani industrialist who said a few years ago, he said that Pakistan's friendship with China has hurt us much more than its animosity with India has. So now that in a sense tells you something. But this is a typical small country argument, that we need to be protected because the large country is going to swamp us. If that was the logic, then the United States and Mexico, United States and Canada should never trade, and say Croatia should not trade with Germany. It doesn't happen that way. In regional trade, there are always specializations, intra-industry specializations that can develop. I'll tell you one example, and this is many years ago, that there was in the Indian Punjab, there was orders placed for agricultural machinery for threshers or certain components of threshers on the other side of the border. And the engineer who would provide those specifications to the small manufacturer based near Sialkot on the GT road would come through Singapore to sort of deal with the supplier. Yeah. Now that is something that we are told that that Pakistan's light engineering will be swamped out. Yeah. It's not the case. There would be specializations within that will be created.
Okay.
I just want to.
So we need to take a break just now. We'll be back with this discussion. We'll get back to Admiral Nayyar on what he has to say on this. Don't go away. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV. Welcome back. We are discussing the future of India-Pakistan trade. Admiral Nayyar, you wanted to say something.
No, I just wanted to refer to a remark made by Asad that Pakistan is a small country, and this is the way small countries react. Pakistan is not a small country. I spend almost 25% of my time talking in Pakistan that you are a very large country, as I said, the third largest country on the Eurasian landmass. But this idea...
It is compared to India.
Yeah. No, but it is not compared to India. They, regrettably, a lot of Pakistani policies emanate from their feeling that they are a small country, forgetting that they are a large country and responsibilities.
Ambassador Mukherjee, you know, there are going to be losers and gainers because of trade on both sides. But do you think trade doesn't take off because the losers are better organized than the winners?
I don't know. Wherever I've served in 4 continents, there are short-term difficulties when you open up a trading regime. There are calls for protectionism. There are Cassandras who say that things will fall apart. But in the long term, if you notice the trends in world trade, in the long term, opening up of trades and of good services, goods, and trade in goods and services has led almost invariably to beneficial effects on both sides.
Are the losers better organized in Pakistan, and they are the ones who are preventing
I think the losers have actually been are losing the battle. All chambers of commerce are on board. The one big, very articulate protectionist argument would come from the auto industry in Pakistan. Yeah. Now, I was sitting in the Pakistan Business Council, which endorsed trade, and the auto industry was fully represented there. The Toyota and the Honda local franchisees were on the board, and they signed on the dotted line. So that is there. I think the opposition in Pakistan now is not from economic. I mean, there may be some muted voices there, but it's not coming from the business side or from the
Yahoo parties, the marginal.
It's the Yahoos parties. And it's the right wing religious parties, and they feel that the issue of the territorial disputes is going to be diluted as a result of trade. Now, my argument is that that need not be the case where there is a genuine disagreement or a dispute. India and China have disputes, they trade.
China and Taiwan.
China and Taiwan, Russia and Japan do, etc. So, so we need to separate trade from many other diplomatic or territorial issues.
No,
Admiral, answer this, but also tell me, how do you trade if you don't have banking channels? You know, there are no Indian banks in Pakistan, no Pakistani banks here, and people talk of money laundering fears if banks are open.
No, there is a case for opening banking branches, but what I tell...
It's a chicken and egg situation. You know, if you have trade, you feel the need for banking.
I tell, you know, this group which says that territorial dispute will be diluted. I tell them that for 50 years, a confrontationist policy has been tried, hasn't got both of us anywhere. Let's cooperate for 10 years and see whether in that climate, even those problems can be solved or not.
If I can just add one, just half a minute. Even in the most open of economies, you will always find the naysayers. I mean, you'll always find, as I did, loud voices in the US talking about jobs being Bangalored. That has to be lived with, and countries have to be encouraged to fall in line with, you know, their international obligations.
Asad, India's lifted the ban on foreign direct investment from Pakistan. Now, do you see India-Pakistan joint ventures? Because you've been a great votary of India-Pakistan working together to exploit Thar coal. So would you like to say something on that?
Well, I think once trade opens up, the natural corollary is investment. You have to be investing on the other side. I mean, you have a big trading house, even that requires an office on the other side, some level of sort of facilitation infrastructure. So that is going to happen. And investment will be the second step. And that's where I think the gains for India will be significant.
The possibility of investment in Pakistan are great. That's why I said that we can shift production facilities there. Indian companies are investing in countries, name I don't know where they picked up from Bolivia to other Latin American countries. There is a person who has gone and invested in Iceland. Pakistan is next door. And we speak a language which is understood by those people.
Ambassador, Asad was saying earlier that all of India's energy sources, India's energy deficient, all its sources of energy really lie to the west. So can we ignore the Pakistani landmass and say we will bypass it to bring energy into the country, or can we use it as a corridor?
Well, the case in point is the pipeline from Central Asia via Iran and Pakistan to India, which is caught up in in limbo simply because of security concerns.
So your answer is yes, we should use it as a corridor. Last word to you, Asad. I want to ask you a very general question on behalf of our lay viewers. Is trade going to make India and Pakistan better friends, or is it going to make us more responsible adversaries?
More responsible adversaries. I would personally hope it makes us better friends, but that need not be the case. And those who do not want to be friends, they should also know that you can trade and you can love to hate each other as much as you want, one way or the other. So, so the French and the English need not love each other, but they trade with each other.
Thank you very much, all of you, for sharing your views with us and our viewers. I hope we'll have you again in this studio, especially you, Asad.
Thank you very much.
That's all we have for you today. We'll be back next week with another interesting issue. Till then, goodbye.